But we can talk about all kinds of things. Listen, we have to at some point be accountable for who and what we are and what we've done. And I want to say to y'all, the final act of this Broadway is that in some way or another, we have manifested. You have manifested. You have manifested where you are. You manifested what happened. You manifested where you are. Just admit it so we can move forward. All right, let me go grab something real quick. Now, look, I'm all for having a little fun, you know, playing the game a little bit here and there. But one thing that has to be done is the truth has to come out. And like I just said, at some point you got to admit that you manifested the scenario and the situations that brought you right where you are. Now, I know some of y'all, a lot of people are not ready for that. And I get it. Because it's a hard pill to swallow, honey. It's a hard truth to accept. But you gotta admit at some point that you exactly where you are. You called on it, you asked for it in some way or another. And that's the reason why a lot of people don't like the concepts that we talk about here with the law of attraction and law of assumption and everything. And they don't like the concept of having to take responsibility for being the creator of your own life. That's why people don't want to be the creator of their own life. That's why people are comfortable with accepting and receiving an outside resource, right? Because it's like, oh, if God is outside of me, then that means that I can have something and someone to blame things on when my life is not going the way I think it should go. And I've discovered that, right? I've discovered that because first off, a lot of people don't feel comfortable taking responsibility for the shit that's going on in your life because you don't want to take responsibility for the fucked up shit that's going on in your life, right? That's why you don't like to say, oh, I'm the creator. That's why you want to fight it and why you want to keep going on with this whole bullshit. Because in reality, let me tell you something, baby. Let me tell you something, hunty. You know what the fuck it really is. And I'm sure of that. I'm sure of that. But what I also know is that motherfuckers don't like taking responsibility for what the fuck going on. So that's why it's easier to have an external God. That's why it's easier to be a Christian or a Muslim or some other shit. Because you ain't got to receive the responsibility. You ain't got to take the responsibility for your own shit. That's why motherfuckers don't like to, go too far into they new age spirituality. It ain't even no new age spirituality. This the shit our ancestors was doing. Okay? This the shit they was doing back in the time of the pyramids, in the greatest times when they did some of the most beautiful artwork, when they've created some of the most beautiful structures in life. Structures they still can't tear down. They can't figure out how to replicate these same structures. These were the people who were responsible for their behaviors and their actions because they were also very intentional about the things that they was creating. I'm trying to tell you something. At some point, you got to admit that you attracted the circumstances and the situations that's going on in your life. I'm willing to admit that about my life. I am. Because if I'm willing to admit that about my life, then I'm also willing to admit the beautiful things that I'm about to create in my life, or the beautiful things that I have created in my life. But a lot of people don't. They just want to take. They don't want to. Most people just want to take accountability and responsibility for the good things. You know, they don't want to take accountability and responsibility for the bad things. I take accountability and responsibility for the good and the bad in my life. The good and the bad. Because I'm responsible for it all in one way or another, right? I played a part in one way or another. What I'm here to say right now today, the reason why most people don't want to accept the God in you is because they don't want to be responsible for the bullshit too. And a lot of people ain't gonna be able to admit that. You know, it's hard to admit that. Damn, my life is fucked up because of me. Ain't nobody else responsible for this shit but me. And to be honest with you, hey, I find it to be a beautiful place to be, because when you see that, damn, I'm responsible for this fucked up shit, but I'm also responsible for the beautiful shit. That means that I can create many, many beautiful things in my life, right? A lot of people don't, they just want to see the beautiful shit. They don't want to see the ugly shit though. And that's the problem. You got to accept the good with the bad, motherfucker. You can't just accept the good shit in your life. You got to be responsible and take accountability for that fucked up shit going on in your life too. God damn it. Yes, you do. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. And so that's where a lot of people go wrong. That's why people move off of this path, and that's where they can't stay stable in this path, because they recognize that they have to become responsible for both the good and the bad. Okay. And that part is a hard pill to swallow. It is. It's a hard pill to swallow that, damn, my life is fucked up because of me in some way. It's a hard pill to swallow that, damn, I must have manifested this shit in some kind of way. And listen, sometimes you don't realize by default, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's shit by default because it's just the way you was thinking, and you was fucked up in your mindset, the way you was thinking and feeling and vibing, right? But the reality is that, you know, you can pretend that that wasn't the case, or you could jump on it and be like, well, what was it that I was thinking? How was it that I was thinking? What is it that I need to ensure that I'm no longer thinking in order to make sure that I create beautiful things in my fucking life? But instead, motherfuckers rather run from the goddamn truth. Right. Well, we all got choices, ho. Listen, I'm not about to sit here and argue with nobody. I accept and I receive all of the bad things that have occurred to me in my life. And I accept and receive the responsibility that I take in that situation, right? In those situations. I also accept and receive the beautiful things that have occurred in my life. And I accept and receive the responsibility I took in those things as well. Because now it allows me to be, in a sense, in a place of power to create something new and something beautiful. What next will I create? What next will you create, knowing that you are responsible for the good and the bad in your life? You know, if you accept that you are responsible for the good things and the bad things in your life, and you say, well, damn, I'm responsible for that too, and I'm responsible for that too. Well, that was me, and that was me too, good or bad. What then will you decide to create next? Is the very next question I got for you. And you know, you don't got to answer with me. You literally just need to think about that and decide that for yourself. What is the next thing you are going to create? If you are willing to admit that I am responsible for the fucked up shit going on in my life, I am responsible for the beautiful shit going on in my life, then what next will you create? I'm ready to create some beautiful shit. So I had to share this with you. Because sometimes it's easy to forget, you know. The world has so many external powers, so many external gods, that you forget the God source inside of you. And therefore, you forget how responsible you are for the shit going on in your own fucking life. Take fucking responsibility of the good and the bad so that you can create more good. It's just as simple as that. All right. I'm done. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe. Hit the bell so you can get notifications when I upload new videos. And smash the like button, goddammit.